Hello, this is Ron Holle with Faisal in Tucson. This is a joint paper 6.8, Lightning Occurrence and Casualties in Uganda. My co-authors are Dr. Marianne Cooper of the ACLE Net in River Forest, Illinois, Richard Chemareri of the ACLE Net in Kampala, Uganda, and Ryan Said of the Faisal office in Louisville, Colorado. Why are we studying Uganda lightning? In late August, unfortunately, 10 boys were killed. They're playing in an inter-village soccer tournament, and when the rain began, they went underneath the hut, the grass roof overhang of a hut nearby, near the field, and 10 of them were killed. There's many multiple injury and death events due to lightning in Uganda, especially due to situations at schools. And the African Centers for Lightning and Electromagnetics Network, ACLENet, is most active at present in Uganda. So let's talk about, first of all, the lightning occurrence in Uganda, lightning, then the deaths and injuries in Uganda, and a little bit about lightning safety there. The Global Lightning Dataset GLD 360 that's owned and operated by Faisal has been able to be used to provide a map of lightning density over Uganda for the last 5 years. Here we can see a map with a very strong maximum over Lake Victoria, which is well known and been studied separately with myself and Dr. Martin Murphy in a monthly weather review article a few years ago. The rest of the country has lightning. Some areas have less than others. However, due to the high vulnerability of the population, it really doesn't matter too much how much lightning there is. It does matter what the exposure is. Now, looking through the year, the equatorial trough crosses over Uganda, which is very close to the equator, and parts of it are at the equator, comes over twice a year in March, April area, September, October, November time period. Now, time of day of the lightning itself shows the typical afternoon maximum in lightning between noon and 6 to 8 p.m. Drifts off somewhat toward midnight, and then there's this large maximum, which is almost exclusively over Lake Victoria and not over the land masses. So this is an unusual situation where we have a mixture of a land effect and a nocturnal maximum. Now let's look at the deaths and injuries in Uganda. There's two categories here, the general one and the schools. First of all, I did a study a few years ago. It's in Weather, Climate, and Society, an AMS journal, and I looked at all the studies that have been published in on the national basis with data sets starting in 1979 or later. And you see that a lot of countries don't have data. However, the developed countries are in yellow, which is the lowest lightning fatality rate, orange is the middle rate, and Africa is the highest rate. So looking in more detail at Africa, there are studies in South Africa, Zimbabwe, and Malawi showing the rate is over 5.0 fatalities per million per year. The Uganda study is in orange, but it was in the period from 2007 to 2011, before the internet penetration really expanded greatly, or actually exploded. So we don't think that's a representative number. So how did I come up with the lightning casualty reports? I get an hourly Google alert on the word lightning. A number of people in the lightning safety community are doing this. And I also have some web and newspaper and other media reports. ACLENet has been able to obtain some reports from citizens in Africa and has now a database on 33 of 55 African countries, some of them more complete than others. But we think the biggest problem is that there's an underreporting of the smaller events with a few people killed or injured. This was true in the U.S., not so much so now. So it would be great to collect a uniform national database for Uganda. There really is none in the recent years. So if you take all the reports pre-internet penetration upgrade and afterwards, 2007 to 2020 up to this point, at 120 events, 212 injuries, deaths, 824 injuries, 1,000 people killed and injured. The population now is 47.4 million. It was quite a bit less in 2010. It's a rapidly exploding population in Uganda, lots of young people. So the rate is 0.4 deaths per million per year, which would put it in the orange category, but we're missing tremendous numbers of individual events. A little bit about the casualties from what was available from the Google alert system. More males than females, but because there's so many school events, we have a strong tendency toward younger ages, but this is also representative of the population. So overall, there were 55 out of the 121 events were in schools, but then there's other events that are identified here under trees of universal situation, church, 4 cases, so on and so on, soccer, a lot of single events, and a lot of home events in grass thatched houses, as we saw in that case earlier with those boys that were killed going under the overhang of a grass roofed structure. A lot of other things around the houses, so they happen in a lot of places, but the biggest one we know of at this point is definitely schools. So here's again the annual lightning occurrence with the 2 peaks in the equatorial trough. Here's the reports of lightning events, the casualties, and it doesn't match very well. And I've placed a third scale out here when school is in session. They have 3 sessions with about a month in between. And again, it doesn't match really well. There's no really simple single answer for all this, but it's very intriguing to see how things line up here. So the casualties, the deaths and injuries are mainly in the afternoon and evening, as is the lightning over land. I should point out that some of the schools actually have classes in the evening because quite a few children stay in boarding schools during the week and have classes in the evening to continue their education. So if we look at the schools alone, there are 43 events, 94 deaths, 554 injuries. 19 of these school events had 11 or more lightning casualties, which is really disconcerting. So of the schools, 27 of them are primary schools, 8 of them are secondary. Then there are some other types and also 3 events we don't know. So there are very many primary schools in the country and somewhat less in the secondary or high school area. So where were they? 14 of these cases were in the classroom. 4 of them were playing soccer on the school grounds. Other times we don't really know for sure. They just say they're in school or it's in lunch hour, probably inside buildings, 2 living in the dormitories where they stay, and other situations, and a lot of different hard to categorize situations. But the school property is really a source of difficulty. And in 2011, there was an event at Renania School, primary school in Uganda, where 18 children were killed and 38 injured. And this actually initiated the start of ACLENet a couple of years later. And here's a quote from the head teacher that they had 600 students before the event, went down to 400. Then after lightning protection system has been installed by ACLENet, it's up to, at the time of this quote, was up to 800 pupils, and now it actually is 1,200 at the schools because they trust the lightning protection. That is one of the main goals of ACLENet these days. And the last few comments here are, what does it take to be safe? And there's certain safety inside of a large, substantial, frequently occupied building that's probably has wiring and plumbing. Most of you know that. Or inside a fully enclosed metal top vehicle. Not certain is what you're wearing or carrying or how you're standing or what you're standing on, essentially anywhere outside of these 2 safe locations. So in developed countries, we can plan where and when to go inside of a lightning safe building or vehicle because they're almost always available. And so at this point, most of the fatalities and injuries in the U.S. and developed countries are on the property of dwellings or during recreation when they are close to these safe places, but they're not inside. In developing countries, is there a metal top vehicle nearby? Maybe, probably not. These Uganda cases, they generally don't have vehicles anywhere near, not enough to hold hundreds of children, and there is no lightning protection systems on them. If there is protection, then people trust them, and that actually becomes a community center. So there really is no lightning safety without lightning protection that, that gives you the solution of a lightning safe structure or a vehicle. So the number of reports of lightning casualties in developing countries is really greatly increased in recent years. Within the last 5 to 10 years, the internet penetration in countries like Uganda and countries around there is very large. Other countries, no, not yet. There's many more people in a country, so that the number of reports actually goes up. But much of this population is still involved, as much as 80%, in labor-intensive agricultural work. There's no lightning-safe building or vehicle nearby, and lightning awareness is rather minimal. We're working on that in ACLE-net. Detection is generally, data are not available, warnings are not available, the medical care is also not has not improved substantially. So there's a lot of reasons why these reports keep going up. And I'll finish with a few lightning safety connections. There's a booklet that Vaisalov we published a few years ago. So you think you know lightning, just Google that term. The National Lightning Safety Council in the U.S. has been very active in collecting and promoting lightning safety messages and data. There'll be some other talks at the conference from the Safety Council. And ACLE-net is very active in Uganda and actually is trying to expand these sorts of projects in Uganda into other countries. Thank you very much.